Rio de Janeiro
with a big man.
Hello everyone, welcome to Rio de Janeiro. This is Abid Imam, your host, and I'm pumped to bring you this episode. Now we know that travel is an amazing thing, and it allows you to meet cool new people. I met our next guest on the street during the Rio Olympics, and his name is Gary Matalon from Jamaica. This is a conversation you'll want to hear. Gary is an innovator and trendsetter in his field. He made a name for himself as a business mogul, and he's always keen to take on new adventures and revolutionize the way business is done in Jamaica and in the wider Caribbean. His greatest moments throughout the years have ranged from founding successful businesses and starting his family. He has turned his passions into a thriving career. In 2008, Gary co-founded the Kingston Live Entertainment Group with his wife and business partners. As director and CEO of the group, Gary is responsible for the development of premium lifestyle and entertainment establishments, namely Usain Bolt's Tracks and Records. Gary and I had a great chat about everything Jamaica, business, sport, music. It was heaps of fun. So please check out the show notes on abidimam.com so you can find out more about Gary's projects and also the Tracks and Records restaurant. So let's get into it. Gary Matalon, it's an absolute pleasure to have you join me, and usually when we have a guest we start in chronological order, but I want to actually talk about how we met each other, and it was in Rio during the 2016 Olympic Games. What do you remember from that moment?
I recall it as it were yesterday. I was with my brother-in-law. We were looking to grab something to eat. And we ran across you. It was in a restaurant, a Brazilian restaurant, if I recall. And we had a quick chat. You realized immediately that we were from Jamaica, and I think we went straight on to discussion about Usain Bolt, who was splattered across all of the newspapers in Rio, because of his good time that he had the night before with some ladies on that side of the world. So it was. We got a good joke, and we got some good laughs, and it was great meeting you at that point.
I see it exactly the same way, Gary, and it's funny because you were going into the restaurant, I think, and I had just left, and I wasn't in my usual sense of consciousness, because what happened was I was at a rodizio restaurant, which is, for people listening, it's a Brazilian all-you-can-eat, absolute endless feast of meat, gourmet salads, incredible food. And it's a real challenge, because you go 2 or 3 hours of just eating incredible food. So I was not walking out of the restaurant, I was more waddling out. And being during the Olympic Games, there were just people everywhere, and I had to get my composure back. And then I saw people everywhere, but then you specifically took my attention because you were wearing the full-on Jamaican tracksuit, and that's the Olympic team tracksuit. And I'm such a big fan of track and field, so I had to stop you and say, where did you get that from? And then as soon as you started talking, it was perfect, from Jamaica, and we had that conversation.
Absolutely, it was a good time. I thoroughly enjoyed that whole exercise. I mean, that whole experience was amazing because, of course, Usain had just done what nobody else in the world had ever done before, and won the triple for the third time, the 100 meter, 200 meter, and then 4x100. So for us, it was such an amazing moment, to actually be there in Rio to witness it firsthand was like, I can't even put it into words. It was beyond anything I've ever experienced before.
It would have been really proud moments for you to be there. Did you get to enjoy Rio and see a bit of the other sports at the Olympics? What was your experience like there?
We did. It was a good time, aside from a unfortunate pickpocket incident that we had in the early part of the trip. It was really a flawless vacation. It was It was a good time. We actually made it to the Maracana Stadium. I don't know if you're a big football fan, but
Yes.
we were able to see Brazil against Germany, which was an amazing experience to see Brazil play in an Olympic finals in Brazil. So that was pretty incredible, and I won't forget that for now. And of course, a lot of the events that we saw were really kind of track and field based. We didn't get too much outside of the football and the track and field. We didn't really get to see a whole lot else.
Oh, you've spoken to the right person, because I'm a huge football fan. So I was in the city at that time, and it was the context behind that game was so interesting, because I was in Rio 2 years earlier, and that's when Brazil had lost to Germany 7-1. So everyone really wanted to beat the Germans.
Exactly, yeah, man. That was and we just couldn't believe that we were actually gonna get to experience that, and then of course they ended up winning, and it was bizarre. It was such an amazing energy in there. And of course the Jamaican jersey is not too far off of the Brazilian jersey, so we fit right in.
Yeah, same with Australia. It's all about the green and gold.
That's
great
right.
colours.
Correct.
Was it your first Olympic Games as well to attend?
No, it wasn't. I had actually been to London in 2012. I didn't make it to the Far East when he broke his records and everything. I wasn't there for that, but I did make it to London 2012. And that was an amazing experience there with him, and then with Usain, that is, and then of course Rio in 2016, and we did all the world championships in between those as well.
You've mentioned Usain Bolt there a couple of times, those amazing Olympic Games. We'll talk about that further later, but Gary, we'd love to get to know about your upbringing in Jamaica. If you can paint a picture for the listener about some of the beginnings of your life growing up, what are your great memories?
Man, I always find this to be of the more difficult questions that I get in interviews, but it's, to try and sum up a childhood is a challenge, and do it any kind of justice. But I was born in Jamaica in 1974, and my family was, so my great-grandfather was the one who immigrated to Jamaica in the I guess that would have been 30s, 40s. I couldn't even tell you right now exactly when that would have been. And of course, my grandfather was one of 11 children, and quite a few of them went off to fight in World War II, and then came back to Jamaica after the war and got together and started a business. So we had a family business, with the first generation of that family business being quite large, and they became very successful in various industries. They were in manufacturing and trading. They were in financial services. So there was quite a bit also, trading commodities and stuff like that. So they did quite well. And then my father's generation, which, as you can imagine, with such a big, what I call first generation, that second generation became it was ginormous, right? And I kind of grew up in that environment. So a very close-knit, very large, very dominant family that was doing big things in the country. So I was fortunate to be around a lot of really influential people, a lot of really successful people. I mean, I had front row seats at the dinner table with leaders of the country and opposition leaders of the country, and leaders of other countries. And it was quite an experience. Obviously, I didn't really understand the gravity of it at the time. I was young, as a young kid growing up. You don't really you don't have a full appreciation for what that really means. But I guess looking back at it now, it was a very privileged childhood in that respect. My family always, as I kind of went through school and got into the summer jobs, and then eventually, post school, getting into the working world, my family always felt that their philosophy was that you have to kind of start at the bottom. So although I was kind of in a situation where I I had this kind of fortunate upbringing and everything else, we were really kind of put out in the field to learn the hard way. And I had some not so glamorous jobs along the way. I mean, I worked on the construction site. I worked, with the survey department. I worked with the sewer and water department. I mean, I went through kind of really the labor level jobs, for a couple of years before. And this was all kind of while I was going to university, come home and do summers on the construction site. When I eventually graduated was when I got the first somewhat meaningful job in the family business, although still very kind of entry level, and then just worked my way up from there. And I guess we're moving out of childhood now, but yeah, it was a good childhood. I have no complaints.
From the learning that you had through the business, you were also, as you mentioned, the education was a big part of it. And from the research I've done, there is a real theme of innovation. You were yearning to innovate, and that meant you made a step to leave the family business and to create. Can you walk us through that period in your life as well?
Sure. So as I said, post my undergrad, I got engulfed in the family business, and I was doing that for, I guess, the better part of 4 or 5 years, and I can't tell you, although I had, I didn't want for anything. I had a reasonably good salary. I didn't have a lot of expenses. There was still something missing for me, and I think what happened is that, I for whatever reason, I read a lot and I research a lot, and I just felt as though there was just so much more we could be doing. And in fairness to my family's business, that business was founded in the 50s, and the construction business, that is, was founded in 56, and it grew into a large company. And when I was working there, talking about 2,000 employees, you're talking about, major projects and stuff. So they were kind of, it was an institution. It wasn't as nimble and as agile, entrepreneurial type, innovative type organization. And I think that where my head was at was, I just wanted to try new things. And of course that didn't really translate into that organization so easily. So what ended up happening was I started doing a master's degree online through University of Liverpool. And that just kind of blew everything wide open. I mean, at that stage of the game, I was getting further exposed to different concepts, and I really just decided that this is going to be difficult for me, and I wanted to see if I could do something on my own, and moved straight from there into I formed a project management company. So went for professional services because, of course, I felt that I could deliver a lot of value to potential customers, but I didn't really have a whole lot to be able to invest in a full-on construction company or become a full-on developer at that stage. So I opted to go with a professional services business, and we got cranking in about 2005. It was the early part of 2005. I formed the business with a partner who was a little bit older than me and had a little bit more experience than me on the administrative and business side, as well as on the project side. He's an engineer. The company is still going strong today. In fact, we moved from being this startup in 2005 to being the largest project management firm here in Jamaica. And we work for a lot of big international clients and have built some significant projects here in Jamaica. We focus primarily on construction and development, but we did do a software implementation for a large manufacturing business here in Jamaica as well, quite a few years back. But yeah, so that was my introduction into my own business.
How did you make your decision to undergo your study at the University of Liverpool?
It's interesting because I really wanted to get my master's degree. At that stage, I had completed my bachelor's and I was doing what I was doing within the family business, but I felt like I just wanted to further my education. And the challenge I had was I really did not want to leave working world and go back to university. And I just thought, even from a just a burden on everybody else point of view, I didn't want to have to go back to school and work and go to school and just be in school for another, extended period of time. So for me, it was more about, keeping the momentum. I was already in the working world. I already had this energy to do so many different things. And I thought, all right, well, maybe I can keep doing what I'm doing and get my master's simultaneously. So online degrees were what I was really interested in, more than even the University of Liverpool specifically. But why I ended up selecting University of Liverpool was that my research showed me that they were one of the first movers in the online master's programs. And I liked their platform was relatively user-friendly and their interface, just their whole user interface was kind of dead simple. There was really, you moved right into it seamlessly. And I also like the British system because being in Jamaica, we follow more British educational system than, say, an American system. And I think a lot of the other options for me were from American universities that were offered from American universities, which really wasn't. And my undergrad was from an American university. So I felt that this would be a nice balance, a nice mix, a nice diversification from that.
If we fast forward a little bit more, so there is the Fiction Nightclub. So I'm sure it's for Jamaican listeners, they're well aware of Fiction Nightclub and the success of that venture. Can you share to us how you made that first initial step into the nightclub game from the start that you had, which
from construction? Yes,
exactly.
Yes, so that was interesting because fiction was brought to me it was introduced to me, the idea was introduced to me by a friend of mine who was working on the north coast of Jamaica, very close in proximity to where I was building a large housing development. And what happened was that he and I both spent quite a bit of time on the north coast. Well, he lived there and I was there at least 1 or 2 days a week. And we'd go out at night, we'd have dinner, we'd do different things. I was away from my family at that point because I'd be over on the north coast. So I spent a lot of time with him. He was saying, why he had this idea that he wanted to build this nightclub and, they needed some investment. And I said to myself, when I looked at the whole idea, I thought, I was looking for things to invest in, and this wasn't really kind of one of them that was, in my kind of thought process. Nightclubs were the furthest thing from my mind, other than what I like to do on the weekend. But I thought about it and I said, worst case scenario, it wasn't a hell of a lot of money. And I said, worst case scenario is we probably have a lot of fun doing it. You know what I mean? So, we give it a shot. And at that stage, it was really intended to be just a straight financial investment for me. So getting into the planning of it and, put the money in the pot and started kind of planning it out. And of course, on the design and build out side of the group of founding members, it was six of us. Of all of us, I had the experience in the construction and stuff like that. So of course, I, by default, got thrust up into the front line on the build out side and the design and whatever else. We got that pretty much completed, and when we started operating, immediately out of the gates, we were a tremendous success because I think we filled a very big need. There was a gap. There was a huge gap in that kind of social landscape and in Jamaica at the time, and especially for a product as sophisticated as fiction was. I think what happened was the people in that industry before we entered that industry were of the mindset that, this can't work in Jamaica and that can't work in Jamaica and Jamaica this, Jamaica that, and really kind of did things very differently because we're an island, because we're in the Caribbean, because we're not, these kind of first world major markets. And we didn't buy into that. We had all been away to school, and we knew that, we had been exposed to different things, and we knew there was enough of us being people of like-mindedness that we were willing to give it a shot. And we built this really kind of state-of-the-art nightclub with VIP booths. I mean, none of that had ever been seen in Jamaica before. Bottle service and all of that stuff, which was commonplace in big markets around the world. But for Jamaica, it was like, what are these guys doing? This is crazy. and we did it, and it was a tremendous success. So what ended up happening immediately out of the gates is that we found that we needed to really kind of improve our whole back of house systems and controls. I mean, none of us were really in that industry to begin with. And, we kind of opened and we're getting our butts kicked. And we ended up having to of course, again, that was something that was very exciting for me and very interesting. And I was able to dive in there and actually design the kind of the back of house, the systems and controls and implement the technology. I had, previous to that, had done the software implementation through the project management firm that I told you about. And so, of course, we, went ahead, invested in the best of breed management systems that existed for that industry, implemented that. And, before long, we had a really, really amazing operation. So here it is, on the demand side, we're bursting at the seams. We're turning back a couple hundred people every night. On the supply side, we're running smooth as can be. Cost of sales on point. The laborers, the team in place is happy as can be. They're making good money, and it just really became a tremendous success. And then, of course, on the PR side, we were the flavor of the month. We owned both newspapers, and at that point in time, social media wasn't as big a thing. We're talking about 2008, 2009, 2010. Facebook was just kind of coming into play. There wasn't as much Instagram, presence at that point. I don't even think it existed, to be honest with you. And but certainly whatever existed at the time, we were it. And I think it was about a year into fiction that the founding partners, we got together and we decided we were going to a trade show in Las Vegas to see what else was going on in the industry. And it was at a breakfast in Las Vegas that I said to the group, do we want to ride this out for the life cycle of the club, and just continue to enjoy it as we're enjoying it now, or do we want to leverage this success onto something else? And at that point in time, I think it was pretty unanimous. Maybe we were intoxicated from the success that we were having in the nightclub, but it was unanimous at that stage that we were going to try and leverage the success that we were having onto other things. So yeah.
Was it tempting to expand Fiction Nightclub, or were you conscious about diluting the experience or the nightclub, and then you thought about going to another idea of a business, or why was Fiction Nightclub not expanded?
Well, so it was very tempting. It was very, very tempting. I think that what had happened was when we really looked into it, there were a lot of things about Fiction in its current form and in its current location that contributed to its success. And we feared that it was going to be very difficult to kind of replicate that situation. One major factor was that the market that we operate in here in Kingston, the market that we operated in here, is there's not a massive amount. In other words, talking about the demographics, right? There is not a massive amount of disposable income distributed widely across the population, right? So what ended up happening is that we kind of owned a market, but it's a relatively small market, right? In terms of volume, in terms of amount of people, right? So whereas we had an insanely successful business operating with high margins as a very premium offering, it wasn't necessarily something that you could scale across the island. There was talk of maybe going into what Montego Bay, which is on the other side of the island, which is a lot of people locally refer to as a second city. They may, but even their market, that would be their equivalent of the market that we served in Kingston. That market, I think, was even that much smaller than Kingston's market, right? So it would have been very risky to try and take the actual Fiction brand and scale it too much further beyond where it kind of was, you know?
Okay, I see what you're saying there. When people say this won't work in Jamaica, that must seem to really motivate you. But what do they mean by that? What is it about Jamaica that people think a certain thing won't work there?
So, less and less people are, that's you're hearing that a lot less nowadays. And when I came out of university, that was, you could guarantee that you were going to hear that a couple of times a week from leading business people across the island in different industries. And I think the reason for it was that, we were always considered the third world. We were always considered, an island. Nobody really was moving towards contemporary. Nobody was really moving towards, and I think even at that time, the infrastructure, when you talk about, just simple basic things like the public service, the electricity, the telephones, the road networks, all of it was kind of, we went through a period of kind of stagnation. It was like we really weren't doing much as a country, and I think we fell a little bit behind. And of course, it was easy for people to say, "Oh, Jamaica's not ready for that," or Jamaica, that can't work in Jamaica. And that used to anger me. And of course, when we started doing things like Fiction, other people saw those things happening, and we now, if you fast forward to 2019, 2020, I think, and you look at a place like Kingston, it's popping. We have amazing restaurants, and there's new ones opening pretty much, it feels like every week. There's tower cranes. If you look out over the landscape, there's tower cranes everywhere. There's hotels going up. It's a fun city. It is a fun city, and you're seeing a lot more progressive activity in the marketplace. And I think that as long as we can kind of retain our charm and not lose sight of that kind of the integrity of the culture and just our Jamaicanness, which seems to be very kind of polarizing to begin with. So I don't think that it's going anywhere for now. But certainly, I think there's a lot of potential for Jamaica. And I mean, if you look at our land prices and stuff like that, they're a fraction of what they are in some of our neighboring Caribbean islands. So, yeah, I think Jamaica is at the ground level of a massive boom that is on the horizon.
I've never set foot in Jamaica, but I have this deep yearning to visit because of the incredible contribution Jamaica has made to culture worldwide. And I'm really interested to know from you, what is the essence of Jamaica? What is brand Jamaica all about as well?
Well, that's probably about the most difficult question to answer in a sentence. I mean, I think that we could go on forever, but for me, Jamaica is really, it's an amazing place, and as you point out, the influence over the world, and just for such a small island in the middle of the Caribbean, it really has had a lot of influence over a lot of things. And I think that comes from really the people. I mean, Jamaica is about the people, and from our musicians to our athletes to our other people that have made massive contributions to culture. I mean, and I think that pretty much spans just about every area of arts, entertainment, business. I mean, it's funny because for such a small place, pretty much there's nowhere in the world I've ever been and not kind of run across other Jamaicans doing amazing things. And I think that really, if you kind of want to boil it down to one thing, it really kind of comes from our people. And Jamaica is, if you were to say what is brand Jamaica, to me it's a vibe. I mean, it really is. There's just something about the island from every aspect of it, even the physical land. I mean, it's a beautiful place. I mean, I've traveled quite a bit. Fortunate to visit some amazing places. I mean, you and I were in Rio together. How amazing is Rio? And I gotta say, the island of Jamaica has some parts of Jamaica are like nothing I've ever seen anywhere else in the world. I mean, just really, really phenomenal. And trying to give you the unbiased, more, it's tough, obviously, because I love my country. But if I'm to be as objective as I possibly can, I really would say that this country has so much going for it, from the physical beauty to the people that inhabit it. It's really an amazing place.
Gary, I can feel that vibe from here, man. If someone came visited for a week, what would you recommend that visitor has to do in Jamaica, or see, or eat?
Oh, I think, well, that's a tough one, because first of all, I don't think a week is enough time to really experience Jamaica properly. And I would tell you this, if you came for a week at a time over 5 or 6 different visits, you can have a completely different experience each time. It really depends on what you're looking for. I mean, if you were asking me about the beauty of the island, I would say that Port Antonio is like nowhere else. I mean, that's the furthest eastern point of the island. So the island is kind of shaped, it's like a little oblong. It's 170 miles by 70 miles. And, if you think of the furthest east point of the island, you have Port Antonio, which is like just absolutely beautiful, but it's also very quiet. So if you were looking for the kind of wild, crazy party experience, you wouldn't want to go to Port Antonio. You'd want to be more in Kingston or in Montego Bay. If you wanted beach and sea and water, I mean, out on the furthest west side of the island over by Negril is amazing. I mean, like really, really phenomenal. You have 7 miles of white sand beach over on that side. If you wanted to be more kind of in the guts of it, in the rural part, and go and see a Rasta man and smoke a spliff with him. On the south coast, there's some really, really beautiful spots there as well, over by Treasure Beach, and I mean, there's so many different experiences that one could have in Jamaica, and all of them equally as phenomenal but different.
Is jerk chicken a bit of a cliche when foreigners mention it to Jamaican people?
Not at all. We have jerk. I mean, you can buy jerk chicken, jerk pork. At most, I mean, pretty much, if you drove around the island, you'd pass a few hundred places where you could buy, authentic, really, really delicious jerk pork and jerk chicken. Some are better than others, but like anywhere else, you know where to go. So, some of the local knowledge helps in that regard. But certainly, I wouldn't say it's cliche at all. I mean, certainly it's well known. When you talk about Jamaica, people people think jerk chicken. People think reggae music. I mean, those things. You come here, you're going to experience that. And pretty much everything that is everything that's associated with Jamaica in foreign perception is not too far off, with the exception of it being a dangerous place, which is a perception that I hate, and it drives me crazy because, of course, I live here and I raise a young family here, and I think it's one of the greatest places in the world. I mean, obviously there are parts of Jamaica that I wouldn't suggest you go at night by yourself, right?
Yes.
But I think that exists anywhere in the world you go. I mean, there's nowhere I've ever been that doesn't exist. And for whatever reason, I think we really have a bad rap, unnecessarily bad rap, where the crime and violence is concerned. I mean, I don't live here in any form of fear whatsoever. And be honest with you, with what I see going on in the United States, with some of the crazy things that have happened over there, I mean, I actually feel more comfortable being here in Jamaica than I do in most other places.
I'm sorry for saying cliche about jerk chicken. The only reason is because in Australia we are the sufferers of many cliches, such as everyone likes to eat Vegemite and everyone has a kangaroo in their backyard and shrimps on the barbie and yeah. So, oh man, as soon as I arrive, I just want to be smothered in jerk chicken.
Oh, for sure. No, man, definitely. There's plenty of it here for you.
Let's go back onto your journey with Fiction Nightclub and then the leveraging that was going to occur to move to another step. Tell us how that occurred for you.
So as I said, the stage was really set when Fiction was going on, when Fiction was in its first couple of years of operation, and as a result of that, we had generated a pretty healthy surplus that we could reinvest. And two, we were able to access financing, even though we didn't have a lot of security. I mean, other than the assets of Fiction, which really weren't of any great value, we were able to access some financing that allowed us to open our second business unit. And that now was a concept. So one of my partners was or is still in the sports business, sports apparel, and he supplies all of the local leagues, mostly football, but other sports as well, the local leagues with their uniforms and whatnot. And because of his association with sport, he just felt that there was something we could do in the food and beverage business, in the food and beverage industry, and tie sports into it and really kind of leverage all of that. And that's kind of where the beginning conversations about tracks and records came up. And tracks and records is a play on words, right? So you have tracks and records in the music industry, as well as you have tracks and records in athletics, right? And we felt that Jamaica was very well known, especially in the international markets, for its music and for its athletics. At that time, Usain had just broken all the records and done what he had done in the World Champs and in the Olympics, and was really making a name for himself. And we decided at that stage of the game that, look, we need to really try and take what we felt were the best elements of brand Jamaica, standardize it, package it, and export it into other markets. Mainly for a lot of the reasons that you and I have been discussing in this interview, and it really was. It's something that I'm extremely passionate about, and everybody just kind of really bought in immediately. It was the obvious, we just felt that it was, that's what we needed to do. And I actually approached a number of different people, because one of the challenges that we faced was that, at that stage of the game, you're talking about group of young kids, going to put together this restaurant and bar concept and then export it into major markets. It sounds great on paper, but realistically, you're going to go up against, some massive multinational restaurant groups. So we don't have that degree of expertise in the industry. I mean, it's going to be a challenge. And how are we going to really take on these guys in these major markets? Because one thing we know about these large gateway cities and stuff is that it's extremely competitive, and we're going to need to have some edge, some way, shape, or form. What is our selling proposition? It can't just be that we're Jamaican and that's it. The other thing is that a lot of what had kind of characterized Jamaican restaurants and stuff like that in these markets, because they already existed. It wasn't that we were the first to try and break into these markets. But what really was what was known about Jamaican restaurants in those markets is that they were characterized by bad service and inconsistent quality and inconsistent menus, just things running out. I mean, it just weren't really, really well run. And the reason for that is that a lot of them were just kind of mom and pop type things, right? Nobody had really tried to take Jamaican cuisine and, formalize it and really kind of get it into these markets properly as far as we could see. So we developed the Tracks and Records concept, and we thought the way to break into these markets and the way to get people's attention over and above spending, lots of money that we didn't have was going to be through association with some of our Jamaican celebrities, people that had already kind of broken into those markets and made a name for themselves. And of course, being Jamaica is a relatively small community, we know we have very good relationships and know firsthand a lot of Jamaican celebrities. So I was in immediate discussion with Sean Paul and Shaggy and Usain Bolt and, these guys who to international markets were a big deal. To us in Jamaica, they're, the guy that lives on the corner, and who you see at the KFC grabbing food, you know what I mean, on a Saturday afternoon. So for us, it was a simple conversation, but it really was, I think, a good way to get some doors open for us. So we eventually signed an intellectual property deal with Usain Bolt, and he got some equity in the business, and we were kind of, joined forces and used that to launch the first location, which opened in April 2011, of Usain Bolt's Tracks and Records.
Well, I actually didn't know that it started that early. 2011, that's before the London Games.
Yeah.
So
that's correct.
Fantastic
Absolutely.
Timing.
We actually signed the agreement with him in October 2010. And, at every opening of every restaurant that we've had since then, I always made the point that, this partnership is really starting after he had done the triple single, not even the triple double, much less the triple triple.
Yes.
So it was a bit of a gamble for us at that point, but certainly one that paid off tremendously for us, you know. And he went on. I think it was just something about him that you just knew that his spirit and his competitive nature and his talent. I mean, you're a sports enthusiast. I mean, his talent was just, you just couldn't, it was undeniable. Huh? So we took the gamble with him at that point in time. And yeah, it's been a great partnership.
And, you know, he's such an icon. From 2010 to about 2016, I was working in athletics and I was coaching at schools, and the beauty of it was that was when he was in the sport, and every kid that I would coach in sprinting, I would talk about Usain Bolt, and you'd see their eyes just glimmer with, they all know him and they know his trademarks. So it's quite incredible. Tell us about the growth of that now, because it's not just in Jamaica, it's a worldwide thing. Well, it's in the UK now.
That's correct. Yeah, absolutely. So I just returned from there last week, and what had happened was, I think that for Usain, obviously getting into the deal with us was more based off of relationships than it was off of what we were able to offer him, because I think, certainly his other deals that he's involved with, endorsements and other things, are far more lucrative than we are at this stage of the game. But he's also very much a loyalist, and he knows who's kind of been with him since the beginning, and he knows who has his back versus who's trying to exploit him and that sort of thing. And we've always really kind of maintained a really awesome relationship. And, as a young group kind of starting out and trying to build the thing organically, and, we didn't have private equity behind us. We didn't have any real major financiers backing it. I mean, we really kind of built this thing organically from a 4,500 square foot nightclub to, onto the first location of Tracks and Retros, which was 6,500 square foot. And then, again, because a growth option for us that was less capital intensive was a franchising model. So we went ahead and invested in creating all of the operational documentation, creating all of the brand guidelines and doing all of the things that one would need to do to be able to franchise a business. We went through that exercise, which was quite, I don't think we fully appreciated the scope of that exercise when we were getting into it, but certainly we went through that, and what that's enabled us to do is to enter markets, as you point out, like London. So we've built out 3 locations in Jamaica. I think Jamaica could potentially take another 2 locations, which we're hoping that next year we will be able to find some good real estate for that expansion. But in London now, we signed a franchise area development, what they call an area development agreement, or a multi-unit development agreement with a large restaurant group in the UK. And we opened our first restaurant in November last year, and it's quite a large restaurant. It's actually, it's more than a restaurant. It's a restaurant, a bar, and what we call a late lounge. So it has like a basement level. It's 12,000 square feet. So it's double the size of the Kingston location. The ground floor where you enter on the street level, that's 6,000 square feet. So that's much closer in size to what we have in Jamaica. But then below, as I mentioned, there's this basement level, which becomes more of kind of a high energy nightclub on the weekends. It's also, because we're kind of located in a corporate area near Liverpool Street Station in the city, what you'll find is that we have a lot of corporate hireage, so a lot of private hire takes place there, and companies are using that space for different social type stuff, different meetings, and it's a multi-use space, so that's working out really well. But as I mentioned, I just came back from there last week, and it was unbelievable. I was there for 7 days, and I was in the restaurant each of those days. And I'm telling you, everything from the Monday, the Tuesday, the Friday, the Saturday. I mean, every day that I was in there, the energy was just incredible. And it was one of the proudest moments for me in my career to date, to really kind of see it in full flight like that. And it's just very exciting coming into the Christmas. We have a lot of bookings. I mean, the place is just really, really exciting to see that kind of, you're going there, you hear the reggae music playing, and I mean, London, the weather is not known for having the best weather, right? So, you got this cold, rainy Saturday afternoon, and there's 200 people inside there. Everybody's smiling, everybody's having food and drinks, and people are dancing, and it was just a really, really good feeling to kind of see that happen, and we're looking to see how we can expand that model based on the learnings that we've gotten after 1 year of operation. So next year should be an exciting year for us, and we're certainly looking for other markets that we can enter as well. Toronto is right now at the top of the list, but I mean, there are I think a lot of opportunities for us on a global scale. We want to manage the growth so that we can make sure we don't lose control of it. It's most important for us to maintain the integrity of the brand and not compromise that much.
What you were saying there was it made me think you went from no track record to tracks and records.
Exactly.
Yeah, man. And I just got back from the UK myself. We were there for the Ashes. I don't know if you're a big cricket fan, but the West Indies are a team we love, and Chris Gayle is an amazing player who we respect greatly as well. And we were there for the Australia versus England Test series and went to Leeds, which is not the biggest city in the UK, but respectful size. And we were staying in a place called Chapeltown, which is an area with a lot of rich Caribbean heritage and people living there from the islands as well. And it was during the Carnival period. And you would wake up in the morning and go and have breakfast and have jerk chicken, really authentic, or what I thought were authentic West Indian places, and then go watch the cricket. And I felt, this is telling me I need to go to Jamaica. But you could see the opportunity of tracks and records in places like that. And you are going to be expanding to 15 places in the UK, wasn't it?
That's correct. Yes, that is correct. For as a starting point, I mean, I think ultimately we're sky's the limit, but yeah, that's definitely our focus right now. Is not necessarily the speed of the rollout, but more the effectiveness of the rollout. I think it's going to be most important that we get it right. And we're a relatively boutique outfit, so that we can afford to really kind of control our growth, as opposed to necessarily it's not no pun intended, but it's not really a foot race for us. It's more about getting it right.
As you progress your business and they grow in scale, I'm interested in how you optimize your own time and productivity.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I do. That's actually very interesting. So my background is in project management, and I have really kind of tried as best as possible to implement a lot of project management strategies and methodologies to basically everything that I do. So I get criticized for being overly organized, and I think that helps in a big way, because I think otherwise, in fact, to be quite honest with you, I'm not sure I even know another way. Like, to me, if something is not, structured properly and planned out properly, I find that it's near impossible to manage. And I think that certainly on a personal level, I try to have some method of tracking and managing everything that I have to do or else it just doesn't get done. I mean, I say it every day. My brain is no good if it's not written down somewhere. You know, if not plugged into my task manager, or if it's not plugged into my calendar and it's not scheduled properly, I'm in trouble. You know, so I think that. I mean, I don't know that there's any overly unique proprietary way of addressing it, but it's kind of how I deal with it.
And a key theme has been the relationships you've been able to cultivate through your career. How do you see people, or what is your philosophy on developing relationships and then being able to see them flourish?
That's interesting, because I think that that our network is exceptionally diverse and just very valuable, and it's all based off of relationships. So it's really an interesting question that you've observed that from there. But what for me, relationships are everything, yeah, and you have to kind of it has to be based off of honesty and trust, and it has to be coming from somewhere deeper down. It's not, I can't do superficial. I can't do, artificial. It really has to be genuine. And I think that is where the foundation of all of my relationships come from. And as I mentioned, the diversity in my network, I really have great relationships with people from very, very varying backgrounds, and it served me well. I think that everywhere I go, certainly in Jamaica and even outside of Jamaica, I'm able to establish some real genuine connections with some really, really great people.
Gary, I know your time is valuable. As you start the day, we've got a couple more questions, and it would be remiss of me not to mention someone who I know my mum loves, and I was taken out of school early one day to go watch a concert of this certain person. It's Shaggy, of course. What is it like to actually have him in your network as a friend, and how that relationship has grown as well with you guys?
So Shaggy is one of my best friends for almost 25 years, and we've really kind of grown together along the way. I mean, my relationship with Shaggy started right around the time of Oh Carolina, Bombastic. So it would have been at the beginning stages of his career as well, and then, beyond that, he's had a lot of ups and downs, but he's done some he's done some amazing things. He's a bit older than me. We just celebrated his 51st birthday last month, and he came to Jamaica for it, and it was amazing. But we've traveled all over the place together. Our families are very close. His wife and my wife are very close. Our kids are very close. So he had his eldest daughter. He had 1 month to the day after my eldest daughter was born. So my daughter is the 12th of March, and I think his daughter is the 13th of April. It's like almost a month to the day, and they're both named Sydney. So and that wasn't a planned thing. We didn't sit down and work that out, right? But it's funny. I mean, we get teased about it quite a bit, but yeah, he's had an amazing career. He fought in some wars. He's a veteran. He was in the U.S. Marines. He's done some incredible things, and where we've been kind of really collaborating over probably the last since about 2008, 2009, we've been collaborating on some charitable stuff here in Jamaica, raising money for the Children's Hospital, which is located here in Kingston, and that's been going quite good. He's had some massive shows that have raised a lot of money. I think it's about I think at this point in time, we are nearing about probably about 400 million Jamaican dollars, which may sound a lot more than it really is to you because we're Jamaican dollars, not, we've raised quite a bit of money here I'll give you what that is in US dollars if you're interested. But yeah, we've done a lot of work for the Children's Hospital, but it's great. I mean, Shaggy's a really, really down to earth, really cool guy. I mean, he's done exceptional things in music. I mean, he's a diamond selling artist. I don't think there's many artists that can claim that. But yeah, Hot Shots record sold diamond. He's performed with everybody from Michael Jackson, who's no longer even alive, to Sting. I mean, he just went on tour with Sting last year, which was incredible. I had the fortune of seeing them in Spain perform together. I went through that with them. I have been, oh man, all over. I can't even begin to tell you. It's amazing. But he's a great, he loves all his fans, but he's just really a really cool, normal guy. And you'd think that being such a massive superstar that he'd have better things to do than to worry about my 4-year-old's graduation, you know what I mean? But he doesn't miss any of that. I mean, that's the things that are really important to him. And I think, as a result, I don't view him as anybody would view any other friend. I mean, obviously, I don't ever lose sight of the fact of who he is and what a massive brand he is. In fact, you can't, because when you go out for dinner, you have to stop for pictures, and it's not something he can easily forget. But in truth and in fact, the way he is, and the way he is with my kids, and the way he is with his kids and his family, and it's really just it's a great thing. I wish everybody to have a best friend that somebody in their life that they can call a friend, and that can be as genuine a person. Forget all of these other accomplishments in music and in everything else. Just really, really a good person.
Gary, I love that you mentioned family there, because surely that's the crowning achievement of life. And how do you view that balance now that life is busy with projects, things happening, and of course family time, which is so precious? How do you balance those things?
So, I got to tell you, that is by far the achievement of all achievements. I mean, I am so fortunate. I give thanks every day. I have, very, very fortunate to have an amazing wife and 3 incredible kids. And as I say, I give thanks for that every day. So I have my daughter, my first child is 14, 14, 12, and 4. So there was a bit of a gap in the middle there. We had a whoops, what we call a carnival baby, right? But no, they're all 3 amazing children, and they're all very different. And they're great though. I mean, both all the kids are doing exceptionally well in school, and I think that that really just have to give thanks for all of that. And the balance is tough because, of course, there are a lot of demands coming from work, and of course, with 3 young kids at home, the demands at home are also pretty significant. But I just extremely fortunate to have my partner in life is so supportive. We really kind of work well together as a team, and I think that's where it's at. I mean, if you were to ask me how do we do it, we work together on it. It's really nothing is easy, right? So it's really just a matter of managing the time. But we are fortunate enough to be able to go on nice vacations together and spend a lot of time together. So we do the drop-offs and pickups most days to school, and we spend pretty much most weekends, unless we're traveling for work or something like that. But we do spend a lot of time together as a family. We eat dinner at the dinner table every night of life together as a family. which is great. I grew up like that, and I know nowadays we see that a lot less and less. And that's something that I definitely take pride in, that we're able to do that.
You said that I think your daughter's name is Sydney, if I was correct?
Correct. That's absolutely correct.
You know that means you have to bring her over to Australia and show her the real city.
Absolutely, 100%. For sure.
Yes.
That's right. My first child is Sydney. You're 100% correct.
And make sure that when you do come to Australia, give us some love on the west side, Perth, Fremantle. We'd love to welcome you as well, Gary, and family.
I appreciate that, man. It's definitely, as I mentioned to you earlier, it is on my bucket list. It's the top of my bucket list. I'm very much looking forward to that.
Well, Gary, it's been an absolute pleasure. I was really excited to speak to you because we met all those years ago, but it is good to link in and discuss our different cultures. We're so far away from each other, but really interesting, and the love for sport is something that brings us together as well, and music too. So, Gary, thanks for your time. Look forward to being in touch as well, and you have a good day.
I appreciate it, and the pleasure was mine. I look forward to seeing you in Jamaica in the near future as well.
For sure.
All right, Abid. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
Hey everyone, wherever you are in the world, thanks heaps for listening to Rio de Janeiro. You can visit the show website, abidimam.com, ABIDIMAM, for all of the show goodies. You can subscribe, leave a review. I appreciate it very much. And until the next episode, keep smiling, keep scoring.